All right. It is the later part of the evening, July 18th, 2018. Now let's just get into it. The Axiom of Infinity and its importance. What is it? Well, quite simply, as stated in Infinity Series 1, it is a Thetan conduct and character is a collection of a Thetan's whole track experience. Now that may not seem so revealing or all encompassing on the surface, but it is quite startling revelation. Now let me begin by just giving a little bit of the background on this. Now I began some research this life into, some of the upper levels and their results having gone astray or becoming skewed, you could say. And why this was. You had some so-called OT8s, some people that had completed an alternate bridge, the CBR bridge, and they had gotten some fantastic gains in results with these things, granted. But one thing that has always been under question is, and I could state this definitively, is that OT8 was never completed by myself, last lifetime for one. So that is actually not under question. It was still in research stages at the time of my death. And now that being said, I began looking into these results. And essentially what it boiled down to is you had some individuals, despite all of their gains and wins, and how far they had went along with the bridge, these people had become ARC broken, nattery on the subject itself, even claiming it did not work. And it really is. Let me tell you, this is hard to believe that somebody, they can go along the whole entire bridge of Scientology, the upper levels of the bridge of Scientology, and come out the other end with this type of impression and viewpoint. Now that was quite puzzling. It would be puzzling to anybody. Because, even the normal average individual, on this planet, you don't get into your car and drive if the brakes are only going to work 50% of the time, 40% of the time. You're not going to even drive a vehicle where the brakes don't work, let alone 80% of the time. You're going to go down a hill, crash, hit a big rig, who knows? That being said again, why did you have all these nattery individuals with mixed results having gone through the whole entire upper bridge of Scientology? Now I begin to look into this, and, I traced it back to this axiom. That a Thetan's conduct and character is a collection of a Thetan's whole track experience. Okay, what does this mean? That means, essentially and very simple, or simply I should say, that whatever a person experiences throughout the whole entire whole track and this lifetime shapes their conduct and character. Somebody's a mechanic, they are a soldier, they're an artist, a musician. Now that will shape their entire viewpoint. It shapes how they interact with others. It shapes how they communicate. It changes the very quality and character of the person themselves. Not only relative to one lifetime, but as a whole. So if a person, all throughout the whole track, has been artistically inclined, for instance, and a larger majority of their lifetimes and experiences are that of the artist, then of course they're going to have a artistic outlook on life, no matter what you do. And this even holds true when somebody undergoes processing. Take them all the way out the other end, you can take out all aberrative and traumatic experiences from a case. And they will still view life that same way. Same thing with a soldier. Get a person, they go through war. Now you could take this person having gone through a whole entire war. They served overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe even Vietnam. You can clear them. They can get on a solo course, go up through OT3 knots, complete OT8, and even go further with any type of alternate bridge or technology from that point, or even on their own, and they'll still be inclined to be a soldier with that soldier's mentality. They'll probably be apt to carry a weapon, like to enjoy shooting, maybe enjoy the outdoors. It could be any of these innumerable amount of things. And why is this important? Well, it's important because, that having been said, taking all aberration and charge off of a case relatively, well, what gives? They still have fixed conditions, right? Problems associated with these things. And this is demonstratable, very demonstratable. And how can somebody who is an OT8, for instance, have any fixed conditions, problems, difficulty with communicating to certain people and things, when all that should have been handled up through clear and, optimally when somebody was run on their Scientology grades? Because there is a missing factor. There was a missing factor. And that missing factor is simply, it happened. That is all. It was experienced. Now I can run an Ingram flat, run that thing right out. And now you query that person, or query yourself, several months later, and they'll recall it. Oh yeah, I recall the time I had the car crash. This is what happened, etc., etc. It's still there for them. It is not fully as is. To be as is, you could query this person or yourself, months on down the line. And they'll say, huh? What? Oh, well, the car crash. Oh yeah, the car crash. I've never thought of that again since it happened. Or rather, since it was run out in session. You would have to actually query the person. It is out of their awareness. It is no longer bothering them. It is no longer a composite part of who they are or their whole track. It has been fully and completely as is and transformed into conceptual experience. And having been conceptual experience, it is above awareness. This is similar to a person who drives an automobile. When you query somebody about driving a car, when they get in a car and they turn the ignition, they don't have to recall the exact time, place, form, and event of when they learned to drive a vehicle and they took their driver's test to turn a key, hit the gas, and drive, man. It's just not necessary. And this equates to the same thing. Having something converted to conceptual experience and as is, yeah, you can recall it, but it's conceptual experience. It has become an integral part of who you are and been as is. Therefore, it's no longer there. It no longer exists, except on a conceptual level, to be recalled. And this is a very important and missing factor that up until this point had even avoided my detection. And it lends, and I'll tell you right now, it lends to the possibility that there may be higher levels on the tone scale above 40. Given this new data, theoretically, one could postulate that there are additional levels of experiences, or rather tones, above 40 on the tone scale. More than likely, they would be matter, energy, and space and time itself as an experience. Because after all, we are all static beings. And being a static, you have no mass, no wavelength, no location, no energy, no relation in time or space. So therefore, how does a static experience They just experience. Experience as a static could theoretically be synonymous all the way across the board. The experience of matter, energy, space, and time. Because starting at the top, you would have to have time, then you would have to have space, and then energy, and then that energy combined into matter to have any experience whatsoever. But being a static being, you're none of those things. You're postulating them, you're perceiving them, and then you're experiencing them. So anyway, that takes me from my point of this axiom. Quite simply, what it means is, without handling these additional case factors, or this additional factor of running out the actual experience or static portion of an incident or anything else that we run across in Scientology processing, something does not fully as is, and thereafter can have an effect and influence a person based upon that. It may even become mocked back up. A person may even mock up their whole entire reactive mind and bank again. That's why it is important to know and understand this axiom and what it means. Because it means that no matter how much you process a person, if those factors are not handled, more than likely they will just reoccur. So how do we handle those factors? Well, for one, Infinity procedure is a great tool for doing so. And what exact factors do I speak of? I speak of the higher band on the tone scale. Above thought starts with conceptual experience or concepts. Further up the line, you get postulates, then you get serenity of beingness. Now, one thing that was dropped out of, or not inclusive of, Scientology processing itself, on the grades and on up, and the original OT levels, was we failed to utilize the whole entire Dianetic EP in Scientology. Which means that, and now that's not to say on occasion postulates weren't pulled, but a person is sitting on an entire, just an entire drove of postulates within incidents, masses, circuits, etc., without ever having pulled those postulates. Now, having pulled those postulates, a thing can fully as is. That is the beauty of and the power of Infinity procedure, which I will be getting into later itself. That is the power of it. Take an individual, take a PC, take a pre-OT. If they postulate anything on a given subject, incidents, entities, beings, whole entire droves of things will blow into view and then entirely blow off. Reason being is, having consistently postulated something along the lines of any given subject, the PC or the pre-OT's postulate is thus coming into contact with counter postulates or these other remaining postulates and causing the occurrence to where they blow into view and then as is. That is the beauty of Infinity procedure, and more than likely why it works so well. I think that should cover it for now on the Axiom of Infinity. I hope this was enlightening and instructive to you. Thank you, and good evening.